Our mortals. This video was a real challenge, and I'm glad that I finally done it. Press like, leave a comment and subscribe to my channel to help it grow. You can buy my music on Bandcamp, thus you'll get something in return for supporting my channel. All links will be in the description below. Don't forget to press the bell of Satan to don't miss the new videos. Now, take some dark chocolate and a cup of espresso, because it's time to begin. Have you ever felt like a character of the dystopian cyberpunk novel? Have you ever felt like a machine connected to the wires and surrounded by the never-ending sounds of engines, factories, railroads, concrete buildings, etc.? There is one term that describes it all perfectly: industrial. Many associate it with a historical period of the Industrial Revolution that put humans on the path of machinery and mass production. In the context of art, people who know such term might think that industrial is only a music genre. Not quite. It's the whole philosophy with a unique aesthetics. Machines, machines, machines. Assembly line, turn on button. Brain, turn off button. It's time to go to job and plug the electric cable up your ass. Beep, bo, bo, beep. In the slave production factory called school, we all learned that the term was born during the Industrial Revolution that I mentioned above. It was the historical period when humans and the machines mixed up into one orgy of the flesh and steel. Industrial state of mind spread its tentacles into art in the early 20th century with the avant-garde. Avant-garde is the vast field of experiments that deserves the separate review. If you put it on the surgical table, you'll notice that there is a lot to dissect. In the context of art, to get to the roots of industrial, it's enough to take a look only at a specific genre of avant-garde: futurism. Futurism was the genre and subculture that was born in the early 20th century Italy. It glorified the technological progress and the mass production in the extremely militant way. Filippo Tommaso Marinetti was a writer and poet who was one of the founders of futurism and the Italian fascism. Industrial took huge inspiration from futurism and thus the Italian fascism. While the magnificent swastika is shining in the sky, the iron pipes of factories are digesting the insignificant humans. Humans are like mere ants inside that toxic organism with a mass production hive mindset. Boots, 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 boots. Thousands of heavy black boots are trampling the withered ground. Roots were spreading deep within the soil, but now it's soaked with blood and oil. Do you want total war? Goebbels was the first who asked this question. He asked the great Europe and its people before the collapse. Some decades later, Boyd Rice will ask the exact same question in his music while witnessing the results of that collapse. In a similar timeline, artists like Genesis P-Orridge and his bands COUM Transmissions, Throbbing Gristle and Psychic TV will express their views on the industrial society through music and the occult practices. The term industrial came from P-Orridge's music label, Industrial Records. The first wave of industrial music was between the 1970s and 1980s. The most popular bands were Throbbing Gristle, Cabaret Voltaire, and Nurse with Wound. When Throbbing Gristle broke up in 1981, industrial in its original form was over. Everything that came after was already post-industrial. In the 1980s, Genesis P-Orridge started the new band, Psychic TV. He also founded the religious organization, the Cult of the Psychic Youth. Two of the former Throbbing Gristle members didn't want to have anything to do with that. Thus, they split from P-Orridge and started their own band, Coil. Those were Peter Christopherson and John Balance. Coil is no longer active due to deaths of both members. Some of the most significant artists of the post-industrial era were Psychic TV, Coil, Zoviet France, Skinny Puppy, Ministry, Einsturzende Neubaten, Deutsch Nepal, Nordvargr and Godflesh. The era of post-industrial was during the 1980s and 1990s. During that period, industrial music came to Russia, my home country. About the Russian industrial, you can learn more in my video about the Russian music iceberg. I'll leave the link in the end. Another unusual path that industrial took after the 1980s was Neofolk. This music genre is also called dark folk and post-apocalyptic folk. Mainly, industrial artists are doing music either as an occult practice or as a commentary on a modern society. Neofolk artists have slightly different approach towards music. Neofolk tries to reflect on the European history, traditions and roots. It is a way to escape the modern society which is inauthentic and lacks all of the things that I mentioned before. It also romanticizes the great Europe that became the lost paradise after the World War II. Some of the most famous Neofolk artists are Death in June, Current 93, Soul Invictus, Forseti, Darkwood, Of the Wand and the Moon. What's the current state of industrial music? Many of the important industrial artists are either old or dead. Some of those who are alive are still playing music. There are also young artists who are influenced by industrial, but they are not bringing anything radically new to the genre. In the March 14th of 2020, Genesis P-Orridge died in the age of 70. There is an interesting coincidence that it was my 20th birthday and I also released my debut demo, Earth on Helium, in the exact same day. In my opinion, the history of industrial as a music genre reached its logical end. Genesis P-Orridge was the inventor of industrial, and when he died, he took the genre to his grave. Thank you for watching this video. Farewell, stay out of hell.